Okay, in this video we're going to look at solving equations when it is not immediately clear which type of quadratic equation that you're dealing with. So if we take a look at our types that we've studied up to now, you have this type 1a, x squared, and some number. Type 2, which has also an x term. Just do the factoring like that. A type 1b we've already had, where we subtract, add a number before we do the squaring, but still no x term. And we've got the type 3 with the sum product method. But also, there's other types possible. Now, these we've already seen. But something like this, this is definitely a quadratic equation, but there's a minus 10 on the right side and not a 0. This is something that we've not seen before, but still a quadratic equation. We've got then brackets here not equal to 0, but equal to 5x. This is something we've not yet seen because it has a 3 in front of the x squared. In other words, you cannot factor it immediately with the sum product method. And here's an equation with a slew of brackets and complexity. So in other words, are there things we can do to also solve these equations? And the answer is yes. In most cases, there is. And the steps we need to take to solve them is, really what you're doing with solving equations. You look at it and you try to recognize the type. Identify the type, then solve it. If you're not able to identify the type, then there's really three things that you can do. There's three things that are going on with this equation, at least four, as far as we're taking it in this chapter. And that is, we're going to multiply out brackets. Then we're going to get the right-hand side. That's what the RHS means. The right-hand side, we'll get that equal to 0. And then also make sure that the number in front of the x squared, that is equal to 1. And once we've done all of those three things, then we again try to recognize the type and solve it. Okay. So basically, that's what I'm going to go through with these examples here. But let me just put those three steps here again. It's 1, gone brackets. I'll say gone brackets. 2 is get the right-hand side equal to 0. And 3 is make sure we have a 1 times an x squared. So what I mean by this is that we don't want 2x squared or some other number in front of the x squared, because otherwise we cannot do the sum product method. So really this step 3 is only relevant for type 3 equations. For type 2 equations, type 1 equations, it doesn't matter that there is a 1 in front of the x squared. So I want to do this first one, and this first one is really kind of review, and it always comes back. It's a question that tries to trick you really into multiplying out these brackets and see if you can, if you can screw up really. So what's the deal? We have two factors equal to 0. That means that one of the factors must be equal to 0. That means that immediately we can say x plus 2 is equal to 0, or the 5x minus 3 is equal to 0. And that will mean that the x is equal to minus 2. And then plus 3 dividing by 5 here, we're going to get x is equal to 3/5 on that side. That's that one. Also here, I can immediately say x is equal to 0, or the 3/5 x minus 9/20 is equal to 0, just giving you some fractions here as well, and showing you that really it works kind of the same way. So how do I get rid of how do I get x alone on the left? Well, by adding 9/20 to both sides. It's this number. Yeah, 9/20ths to both sides, and that will give me 3/5. X is equal to 9/20ths. And now I want to get rid of this 3/5. And to get rid of 3/5, yeah, you can of course divide by 3/5, and then on this right side you get 9/20ths divided by 3/5. But yeah, kind of cleaner way to do this, because we'll get the same result, is to say, well, I'm dividing this x, I'm dividing it by 5. So to undo that, I'm going to multiply by 5. And I'm also multiplying the x by 3. And to undo that, I will divide the x by 3. I'm doing that on the left. In other words, I must also do that on the right, which would be the same thing as dividing by 3/5, because dividing by 3/5 is of course the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal of 3/5, which is 5/3. So both approaches really do the same thing, don't they? And now, yeah, don't do the 9 times 5 divided by the 20 times 3. No, you can, multiplication, division can be done in any order. So you can do 9 divided by 3 is going to be equal to 3. And the 5/20ths is, of course, equal to a fourth. So that this is equal to 3/4. Just, yeah, a bit of detail on dealing with fractions there. Now, this is the first thing where our new kind of approach, the first equation where our new approach is relevant, because the right-hand side in this case is not equal to 0. Yeah, to be able to recognize our type, we want, look, something x squared plus something x plus some number equals 0. That's the form it must be in for us to be able to recognize the type. So what do? Well, I just add 10 to both sides to get that minus 10 gone. And that will be then plus 10 is equal to 0. This is a type 3 equation, and it's going to be, x minus 2 times x minus 5 equals 0. So that will mean, kind of skipping a step, that will mean that x is equal to 2, or the x is equal to 5. All right. So now in this case, there were no brackets. But this was necessary. This step was not necessary. So in this example, only this kind of thing, the right-hand side equal to 0, was relevant. Here also, this might be tempted to say, I'm going to divide through by x and get 100x is then equal to 1. Don't do that. It says get the right-hand side equal to 0. So that's what you do. You say then 100x squared minus x on both sides. So it's going to be 100x squared minus x is equal to 0. Now, obviously, we have a type 2 equation. We can factor out an x. We can then say x equals 0, or the 100x minus 1 equals 0, and that will give us x is equal to 100th. So that is that second one. Now here is the first one where we need to be able to get rid of the brackets first. Now notice that, on tests you'll have this often. You'll have two of these, and one will say equal to 0, and one will be equal to something not that's 0. And when it's equal to 0, you're there, because the answer to this is x equals 0 or x equals 8. But the answer to this is quite different. You cannot draw any conclusions about x because this 5x is here. In other words, we must follow the steps up here. Gone brackets, right-hand side equals 0, and then get rid of a coefficient in front of the x squared. So x squared minus 8x is equal to 5x. Subtracting the 5x from both sides will give me x squared minus 13x is equal to 0. Then factoring, so this is now a type 2 equation. Factoring out the x will give me x times x minus 13 equals 0. And finally, x equals 0 or x equals 13. Fourth example. All right, now for the fifth example, um, I go to my rules. Yeah, okay, there's no brackets. The right-hand side is already 0, but I do see that I've got a number, or what's called the coefficient of x squared. The number in front of the x squared is not 1, it's 3. We need to get rid of this 3. So the first step is to divide the entire equation by 3. Yeah, remember that this is it's just the balance method with any equation. If you do something on the left-hand side, do it to the entire left-hand side and also to the entire right-hand side. In other words, don't do this, yeah, because that would simply just be wrong, because you're only dividing this first term, of course, by. So what you can do is then we've got x squared. It's going to be a minus 7x. This is going to be plus 12 is equal to 0. This is a type 3 equation. We can factor it into, let's say, it's going to be x minus 3 times x minus 4 equal to 0. And that will give me, in the end, x equals 3 or x equals 4. Right? This one is getting, yeah, it keeps getting more complicated, but yeah, really the steps are always the same. We have to get rid of brackets first. So I've got 2x squared minus the 6x equal to 10x, and that's going to be minus 30. Getting everything on the left-hand side is going to be minus 10x plus a 30. Minus 10x will give me a minus 6x minus 10x is minus 16x. Minus 30 plus 30 plus 30 on this side equal to 0. I then, gone brackets, right hand side equal to 0. That's so, but there is still a number in front of the x squared. I will divide the entire equation through by 2, and I will get x squared minus 8x plus 15 equals 0. I need to make some room for myself. Okay, factoring this, this is the same one that we just had. No, it's not. Okay, so it's x minus 3 times x minus 5 equal 0. In other words, x is going to be equal to 3 or x will be equal to 5. Just a reminder again that you can always check these solutions by putting them into this equation and testing whether this side ends up being equal to that side when you put x equals 3 into there. Yeah. Number six. So is it a type 1, 2, or 3 equation? Looking carefully, yes, it's a type 1 equation, isn't it? There's an x squared term, no x term, so that means that we must isolate the x squared on the left-hand side. So instead of now getting rid of the 63 on the right, we get everything, all the numbers on the right. So we're adding 15 to both sides, and that will give 73 will give, is going to be 68 will be 78. Is that right? Yeah. So then I got x squared. It's going to be equal to 78 divided by 3. I'm going to use a calculator. I need that square root anyway. 78 divided by 3 is 26. So that x will be equal to the square root of 26 is equal to 5.1, or x is going to be equal to minus 5.1. Lastly, do I recognize this type of equation? Yes, it is a type 1b equation. So it's not x squared with no x term. It's x and then subtracting the 6 first in brackets. That is being squared. So in other words, we can solve this in the same way as a type 1a equation. What do? We isolate the we isolate the x minus 6. So what I'm going to do is first subtract 10 from both sides, and that will give me 105. I will then divide by the 5, x minus 6 squared, and so that will be then 21, won't it? And then I say, well, I take the square root of 21. Square root of 21 will be 4.6. So then I have x minus 6 is going to be equal to the positive 4.6, or the x minus 6 will be equal to the negative 4.6. And now adding 6 on this side, I get x is equal to 10.6, or adding 6 to this here, I'm going to get x is equal to was it 1.4? Is that correct? Yes. Okay, so this is how you solve these different types of equations. So the general step, the best way to kind of read it is from here. The process is you recognize the type. If you're able to, yeah, you just solve it in the way that we've learned, yeah, in these 4 types of kind of ways of working. If you're not able to see which type it is, you look for brackets and multiply them out if they're there. You make the right hand side equal to 0. You get rid of any number that's in front of the x squared by dividing through by that number throughout the entire equation, and then you try again to recognize the type. And that is how to solve really any kind of quadratic equation.